It's so good to see you. I feel like it's so funny getting ready for this interview because I actually didn't get ready because I knew that we were just gonna like shoot
Chatty
the shit.
Cathy,
And I already
chatty.
like know so much of your shit, but I've also not seen you in years.
Yeah. Or like we haven't really like talked. Like it's weird when you like social media. I feel like I know what's going on with your life, and you feel like what you know what's going on with my life. But then it's like we really haven't like really caught up. So I was like, let's just do that on the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So first things first, we'll get all the wrestling stuff out of the way and then we'll get into real life things. But let's just address the burn on your face. What happened?
Oh yeah, guys, sorry. I like burned myself on a curling iron. I was really tired and I had to shoot something the other morning and it's coming along well.
If your cheekbones weren't so chiseled, this might not be a problem.
My last picture on Instagram, it's for this company. I had no makeup on, but I had this burn and it made me look like I had defined chisels or like defined chiseled jawline and cheeks. Yeah, it was great. But I don't recommend, I mean, what is your demographic? Is it mostly men or women?
Yeah, for sure. It's mostly dudes.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, guys. So no one's burning their face on a curling iron. I highly doubt this, but you never know.
Might not, but you never know. I mean, you know, guys might be dabbling in the curling iron world. Maybe they're ironing their beards out. I don't know.
Yeah, you never
maybe
know.
That's a thing.
That's what's going on here. And then I have a sick Undertaker shirt on. I worked for this brand years ago and it's called Fair Play in LA. It's like streetwear. And they did like a WWE line when I was injured and I modeled for it. And I have this, I have like a Stone Cold shirt. It's sick. And I love wearing them around because people don't recognize me now.
Really, I love your hair red. Like, I feel like I've seen it so much on social media now that it doesn't catch me off guard. Yeah. I wish I was going to be there in Gorilla for Vince to see this though. Like what I would give.
When they called me about Rumble and stuff, at first they were like, hey, would you be interested? Like, would you even consider? And that was like my second thing that I said was like, oh, I'm redheaded now. And like, I guess Sasha has like every hair color under the world, like, and trim, but like, I think I look extremely different. Like some people don't even really recognize me, especially on socials. And so John Cohn was like, oh yeah, Johnny and I we'll bring it up to Vince. And then I remember like saying it in front of like my sister or something. She was like, don't use it as an excuse. I was like, it's not an excuse. Like I can't just like show up like this and Vince see me and be like, who the hell?
Well, I mean, for a one-off, you kind of can. I mean, you could roll in there with like a pixie cut and be like, guys, I'm booked. I'm number 27, whatever you're going in at. You can play my music. Here we go. Yeah. What are they going to do?
27 would be sweet. That would mean I'd be in there for like a couple minutes.
It's also like the sweet spot. I think number 27 is the number that has the most wins. I'm an absolute loser for knowing that. But that's what happens when you broadcast in WWE for so long, is you have all these little facts that just rattle around in your brain.
I'm glad you like my hair. I did text Eva Marie like 2 days before I did it because I was using her hairdresser, Jose Glam, in LA. And I had my hair for 34 years, like same cut, color, everything.
Your mom did your hair, right?
Forever. Yeah, for years. And my mom actually was like, there's no way I'm dyeing you a different color. You will hate it and you'll kill me. And I was like, fair enough. And so I texted Eva. I was like, I'm thinking about doing this. And when I first did it, it was dark red. It was like purpley red, like almost like a Sasha red.
Yeah.
And when I told Eva, she was like, oh my gosh, she's like, you're going to freak out. And then like 2 days later, you're going to really like it. And she was like stoked about it. I was like, okay, cool. And then before he took the towel off and within seconds, I was like, I'm obsessed. And he was like, really? I was like, oh my God, I've lived my whole life in a different hair color. So the blonde comes through and my hairdresser in New York has been doing it the most kinda. And she says, people come into the salon and say, I want to do what you did with her hair. And she's like, oh, well, that's like her natural blonde coming through. Like she doesn't have highlights. Like it's not going to look like that. So
that always blew my mind about you. I mean, I'm a natural blonde, but not like you are. Like you are a blonde. Like I cannot believe that your hair comes in that light. What an anomaly.
Cool. Especially like when Tennille and I are overseas and like we're outside, I'll like come back. It's a whole nother color. So it makes modeling really interesting because then my agents will be like, hey, can you like step outside and take a selfie for us? Like for us to pitch you to this client, like to see what you're working with today. But yeah, it's fun. Barbie makes me want to go blonde like a little bit. Like when I hang out, I know she's brunette, but like when I hang out with her, I'm like, oh, she's so good blonde. And like, she makes me miss it a little bit. So I don't know.
She's great both ways too. I mean, you guys both look great in any hair color. So whatever.
But that's like my number 1 and 2 tweets by the WWE universe is like, what are you wearing for Rumble? And what are you going back blonde? And I'm like thinking like, I know it's mostly men that like, you know, are my fan base, but I was like, no, I can't just go back blonde in like a week. Like it would take like multiple visits.
It would trash your hair. Yeah. It would trash your hair. Also, how about them using for your like, for your still photo when you had the black through your hair at Rumble or at Mania?
I know. I'm like, that doesn't even look like that. I'm like, well, I guess they're like prepping my hair, me not to like come back looking like that.
They're like, I'm like, you know, her hair's different, but use that one.
I'm like, and like, it's the worst pictures ever. Like WWE,
always.
Like whatever man. I'm like, can we have like a gay man picking pictures? Like, why is it always like someone that like, and I'm so angry in all of them. It's hilarious. So usually I'm like, oh, I don't want to repost that because it's ugly, but like literally everyone they did, I was like, I'm just going to have to post it. And WWE posted Natty and I's Total Diva fight on a reel the other day.
Oh my gosh. I am so excited for this reignited feud between you and Natalya. I love where this is going. I hope that you guys get some work done inside the ring in Rumble.
It's crazy because like literally everyone's tweeting for us to be number 1 and number 2. And I'm like, I really want to come back, but not that much. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, can I be like eliminated by number 9 then? Oh my gosh. So yeah, because Natty was in there one time, wasn't she, for like 55 minutes?
She's done like some workhorse stuff like that, like Iron Woman style. Yeah, I don't know what the number is, but yeah, it is something like astronomical like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're so good. But yeah, Natty, we just got a lot of years of beef behind us, Natty and I. So
some pent up frustration. Slap her right in the mouth. Take that, Neidhart.
And the thing that I like about WWE is that because they're so socially active, they really do take into consideration whatever's happening on socials. Like when I debuted with Fandango, maybe this is not a story that's been ever told, but when I debuted with Fandango on Monday Night Raw, it was in London. And it was because that like backup dancer girl that they were, well, first they were hiring a different girl in every city. And then that one girl stuck. Hate her, my arch nemesis. And I'm just kidding. And so she couldn't go over there because she wasn't an employee. Well, none of us are employees, but like she's not like independent contracted by WWE. And so she couldn't go over there. So they were like, cool, like bring up Summer, teach her a little dancey dance, like no rehearsal, nothing. They were like, okay, let's just send her and she'll stay on the tour with Dango like the whole time. And then she'll come back and then we'll replace her. So I went up, live events, did Raw. And then I think maybe I did Raw and SmackDown back then. It's so hard. I forget that they film lined out. It's
I know. It's so confusing when I think about it.
Totally. So we went, trended like crazy. Like people thought I debuted. Then I went back and I think that Monday in America, I even went on TV because it was just like, we ended up there in the loop. So why not have
I feel like when you started doing it, you just kept going, right?
Oh, no. So then they sent me back down. So then after the tour, they sent me down, and the next week, which is fine, like whatever, I got made some money. The next week, they had the girl back on Raw, and the fans went wild, and they were like they loved her, but they were like, no, where's Summer? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Like couldn't believe it. And then I think maybe 2 weeks, they were like, it's fine, they'll forget. And then maybe 1 or 2 weeks, we'll have to ask Skinny Nikki. And then I remember going up to TV the next week, and I remember Hunter being like, well, you're here because Twitter threw a fit. And he was like, and they wanted you to be here. And I understand why they didn't want me with him, because like he is the main attraction in that pairing at the time. Like it was his big debut, and like me being a name versus like a no-name dancer, it would be us. And so Hunter was like, it's very much like, China with me, like looking, well, even though she became, such a big entity, but like you looking at him the whole time, don't look in the camera, like you valeting, like how can you make it about him? Because that was like our worry about having you two up there.
How did you feel of like being told that though? I mean, I know how badly you wanted to be a wrestler and how badly you wanted to work for WWE. What was like that process of like hearing that, of like, It ain't about you right now. We got to put Dango over.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I just love that I was getting any kind of direction. Like, I feel like you're very much like thrown to the wild, and like, they want to see how you do it. And then you get in trouble instead of like, hey, XYZ. So like, I feel like it's best to be like XYZ. And then if it doesn't get over, it's like, well, I told you to do that. Like, you know, it's kind of like,
sure.
Like Dusty would always be like, you know, do it and ask for apology afterwards, you know, which Dream said that. I think about that all the time. Like, do what's best for you and then ask for an apology afterwards. I do it all the time now. But yeah, I don't know. I just like didn't really, I was just like thankful to be up. Before I went up, a girl hadn't been up in a year and a half.
Oh
and
my God.
It was the Funkadactyls. And so Cameron and Trim was like already up on NXT, and then Cameron went up, and she was like fresh, you know, really new. So when I went up, it was a year and a half. So I felt like very fortunate, like, oh my gosh. And then after me, it was like every 3 months, and then every month. And now people just go up and down all the time. So yeah, like I was just like, okay, cool. Like, let's try it because this is my ticket in. So I feel like I never really took anything like personally, you know?
Yeah, no, certainly. And it's so funny, like thinking back to those times. God, I feel like you were one of the first people that I like really became friends with in WWE. And like, I remember you like going through all that stuff. Like, cause when you were doing your stuff in London, cause weren't you in a helicopter with the Shield guys, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my gosh. It was crazy when the Shield first got hot. Dango was like hot, and he was like with Jericho straight off of like Mania. So I remember, I wonder if that wasn't when I debuted, or if that was like when we were still hot the next tour. But yeah, we went from Wales, and they threw us all in a helicopter, and someone from .com came and took our exit, and they probably had to separate, like the Shield came out first, and then we came out. So we couldn't, like, you know, why are we riding on the Shield's private jet, you know, private helicopter. And then we got whisked away to the O2 Center. And even now, like my friends that are in bands, or my friends that are country singers, they're like, you wrestled at the O2 Center? Like, it is so coveted in London. And I'm like, oh, multiple times. So that was my debut. And then when I came back from filming Marine 4, I came back at the O2 Center, and Layla was kissing Dango.
Yeah.
And I just posted
that
on my
hussy.
Instagram the other day. And so like London is like very special for me because I kept like having all these moments. But yeah, the Shield. And then I remember I did a loop with the Shield, and I rode with them in a car, like in Texas, which like the Texas drives are like,
they're so long. Yeah.
Usually it's like under 5, like if it's a long, and in Texas for some reason it was like almost 6. And I remember it was just like the 3 of them and me, like, why? Like that would never happen again. And I remember you don't fall asleep, right? Like you not fall asleep when driving. And I cannot remember if I was like applying makeup, or I want to say maybe I dozed off for a half a second, and they would slam the brakes on, like throw a water bottle at me in close proximity. And I'm like, what is going on? So they were like the brothers I never had.
It's so funny because like, as I was like thinking, so John and I live in Cincinnati now.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you remember this, but we went out one night, me and you, we went and met up with John and Roman at a bar in town. And this was one of the first nights that I really hung out with John.
In Cincinnati?
We were in Cincinnati, but we were across the river at a bar. So we were actually in Kentucky. Not that it matters. It's the same thing. It's like literally a stone's throw. But we went to this bar, and we were like John and I were doing like the dirty dancing. Like he was like trying to like lift me up, and I was like sandbagging his ass. But I remember being there, and like it was just, it was me and you, John and Roman. And I remember asking you, I was like, you're not like seeing one of them, are you? Because that's when I was like, I think something's happening with John and I, but I really don't know. I wasn't sure what was going on. No. Yeah, you're like, absolutely not. They're like, no, they're like brothers to me. Like, there's no way. I'm like, okay, good. Green light. Here we go, baby.
Oh my gosh. Was that after TV? I remember that.
Yeah. I think that was when you and I were driving with Cole and JBL.
Oh my gosh. I just saw JBL at the signing event or whatever. Yeah. I'm like, I haven't seen him in years. Like, he doesn't really do the same signings as me. And so, well, no one's really had a signing because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And he said to me that thing. He goes, I'll never forget you riding with me and Cole and Renee. And like, you girls just wouldn't shut up. And I was like, I'm pretty
that
sure
got
like,
us kicked out of the car.
Oh, and then he said that I signed him up for Instagram, that we made him get Instagram.
I do think that that's true because I feel like he said that in the post and I was like, that kind of rings a bell. I feel like that might have been a thing that we had that happened. So
he was like,
you're
I
welcome,
have social
everybody.
media because of you. And I was like, what? Oh, because that's what he said. I was with Danielle and he was like, oh my gosh, we watch your travels all the time. You too, and your travels. And he goes, the only reason I'm watching it is because you signed me up for Instagram. And I was like, what? And he was like, you signed me up. And I was like, I don't remember that. And he was like, on that trip. Why did we all ride together? Well, you were riding with them, right?
I was riding with them already. Like they were the first people I ever rode with. I think that it was like after that trip that they were like, okay, you guys can go get your own car and get the hell out of here.
Did you get free cars?
I think that we all did. Like me, Cole, and JBL as like announcers. I believe like we all got them. Okay, let's run things back here for a quick second. I mean, we've already been running it back, but more like a present day run back. How did it all come about for them to call you for the Rumble? Because this is your first WWE thing since leaving, which is crazy.
It's crazy. Like, well, the funny thing is too, like, there was no like rumblings ever. Like, so October was when I left. And so that was like October 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. But then I hadn't wrestled the year before that. So I think I just crossed over 4 years gone, but 5.5 years since a match. So like my last match, I didn't even know, you know, the fans like tweet you. It was like, and I never was like, ow, I'm injured. It was like, I started to like kind of speak up after this like live event match. I think the fans have told me my last match was like with Foxy in like a random city in July. And I had like kind of spoke up and then like went to a doctor, then went to another doctor and went to another. And like, so then I never really knew, like, so that'll be cool. Like going to the Rumble again. Cause I'll be like, oh, I never like had a last match and I can like be present in that moment and aware of like what's happening. But yeah, no one had like called me, texted me, nothing. I remember like at the beginning of the pandemic, living in New York, I was like, oh, Connecticut's kind of close. Like, I wonder if I'd work for headquarters. And then the pandemic hit. So I like always Carano and like Cone would like message me happy birthday. And I never burned the bridge, like, but I also don't have access to like Vince or anything. And so it just was always fine, but like no rumblings of anything. And then I went to Tennille's show on Impact because I just happened to be in Vegas and I was like sick. And like, of course, the Dirt Sheets picked that up and we're like, oh, she's going there. And I was like, no, I'm just like, not, it's very coincidental. Like I just happened to go to her show, you know, like I guess I could have sat in the back, but I wanted to see her, you know? And so I'm literally packing for Abu Dhabi. It was like 9:00 at night. And I see John Cohn's name pop up on my phone. And I went, what? And you just know, I literally picked up the phone. And I said, what do you want? And he was like, I go, oh, don't you play coy with it? What on earth? Like, what is this? It's been 4.5 years. And he goes, well, putting together a list of like potential girls, wanted to gauge your interest. And I kind of was like, I honestly didn't even really get my hopes up. I said, well, that's flattering and cool. Of course. Like there's only been, is it 3 women's rumbles?
I think this is 3 or 4. Yeah. I want to say 3, which means that it's probably 4. I don't know.
Yeah. So I was like, I mean, that's amazing. Like growing up, like the Rumble for me is like my favorite pay-per-view. It was always that or Money in the Bank. I thought was really cool. And then of course, Mania, everyone loves, but almost all of my guy friends love Rumble. It's just fun. It's Rumble's exciting.
The best one. It's the best pay-per-view.
I think so. Like when the Godfather comes out and his host.
Get on the hoe train, baby.
I want to be on your host. I told him that the first time I met him. I was like, I used to want to be your host so bad. And he was like, ma'am, are you with catering? Like, who are you? I was like, no. So
big fan.
Yeah, big fan. So I was like, that's crazy. And I think I called my mom. I was like, you'll never guess what. And my mom was like, oh, well. And then I literally flew to the Middle East. So it was like, they were like, you won't find out till like probably in the new year. I was like, okay, great. So like got it, received it, let it go. And then he called me like, I think 5 days later and was like, well, Merry Christmas, because we actually have an answer for you. And it's yes. And I was with Tennille, and I was like, really? I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And then in my head, I just started thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, like what gear, like what moves do I do? What is my entrance? Yeah. Like what? And I was like, wait, when is this? Like, who do I tell? Like, do I not tell? Like, where is it? Like, so it's just all in your head. And Tennille was like so happy for me. She was like, oh my gosh. And I was like that too, but I was like processing it. I'm like, yeah. Wait. And so I was like, does he know I have red hair? And they're like, yeah, Johnny loves it. Vince thinks it's cool. And I was like, okay. And so then I didn't even ask who else was. I was just like, okay, great. And then I hung up the phone, and like Tennille was like, that's great. Spin kick, cover. Or something. Like, she's like, she's like, do a little spin kick, roll through, you know? She's like, you could be in there for 2 minutes or 20. Who knows? I was like, yeah, that's true. And so I love that her response, you know, for me for that. Like, she's just a really good friend. And so then I kind of was like, oh shoot, like I'm overseas and forever. So that's when I kind of was like, I don't even know anyone to like a ring or like fix gear or anything. So, you know, luckily I have like really good pieces of gear that I've like spent like $1,500 on that I've like never really worn, but once. Good. So I've been able to like alter stuff, which I know is going to like annoy some people, but like also no one pays my bills. And like, you know, that's just what I want to do.
Totally. 100%.
Yeah.
No, so, I mean, when I think of Summer Rae, I picture like the pink and the gold.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. That one's a little beat up because I wore that a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, like I'm just really excited. I have no idea. Well, then they called me last Friday and said, hey, I'm like on the treadmill, and I was like, so Vince like wants to announce a couple of people tonight in the guys match and the girls match. And he's thinking about announcing you. So like, just a heads up about your socials are going to surge. And I was like, wait, really? And then I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, I haven't told any of my best friends. Like I'm going to look like such a bad person. You know, like I really had not told anyone because I didn't want anyone to ruin the surprise. And so then when it happened, like I kind of was like a little like taken back. Cause I'm like, oh, that stinks. Like it's supposed to be a surprise. But then also in my head, I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to use this to market the crap out of me and what I'm doing. So I'm just like, every time I'm in the gym, it's like the road to Rumble. And, you know, I can like reignite my beefs again with Natty, Pamela Bailey. She like,
Pam, who's Pam? I remember that when I first met her. I'm like, who the hell is Pam?
Pam is like such an old lady name, and she's like so young and cool. So I was actually going to see her because I was going to visit my old roommate, and she was like doing something at one of his gyms. So we ended up FaceTiming recently. So she started like put me over on Twitter with call to me and all this stuff. So it was funny. Like, so I talked to a bunch of the girls, and, you know, they all were like, oh my gosh, it's an insane match to put together. And like everything changes up until the moment that you walk out. And I'm just like, how is that even possible? Like imagine someone goes up for a superplex and you forget and throw someone across the way and they get suplexed on. Like it's just interesting. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like have no ego, like I feel like I'm very easy to work with. And I think producers probably have a time with the boys and the girls matches for those because of all the personalities and the egos and getting your shit in. So, you know, with me, like I would love to have maybe like we can have like a little Total Divas moment because there's going to be so many of us Total Divas in there, and, you know, have like, you know, maybe a spot with Natty or something, and then wave to my friends. I have like a lot of people coming. So really
I know because I'm on this group chat for the cardio situation. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on?
So for no one listening, I knew I was doing this. I knew I was doing the Rumble, and I was like, I would love to like walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes every day. So I started with my group, like close group of friends. I think there's like 30 people in our chat, and we do 30 minutes of cardio for 30 days, but it's the most random group of people. It's like Renee and Tennille with like my hairdresser from New York, my old roommate, a couple gay friends,
your mom,
like my mom and sister, Allie's mom, like all these people. And it's been cute. Like we're all like really super encouraging us stuff. But when it all came out, it's crazy. Like, I just feel like I've done something right where I just have friends that will drop what they're doing. They have babies and stuff, and they will like buy a ticket and come, like fly, hotel. I mean, it's not cheap. And
no,
I mean, I'm
deal.
probably like 5 of my friends today, I have to help them find tickets when we get off the phone, but like they want to come. So I think I have almost like 15 people. So
oh my gosh,
it's pretty cool. So I'm like, please do not let me in there for 90 seconds, but like
Summer Rae section.
Like, yeah, it'll be fun.
So crazy. I mean, yeah, like when they announced them, I mean, obviously with Mickie James coming over, I mean, with her working at it's like, that's the one that was like, wait, what's happening?
So
to have
on
that.
Twitter, yeah, like on Twitter, I was like, don't look at Twitter, don't look at Twitter, don't look at Twitter. Cause like the trolls are so mean. And like,
oh my God,
like,
are they
back
ever?
when I was wrestling, it was like, you can't wrestle, you're horrible, we hate you. Like, it was like the Paige, Charlotte, Sasha era. And like, I was like in between that with the divas and then the workers. So like I was with Fandango, but I kind of got lost in the mix a little bit. Yeah. So fans were really mean to me. So I was like, but I was so curious. I was like, I want to see what they're saying. And it was so interesting because people were mad that they spoiled it. Mm-hmm. And then everyone tagged me with Mickie. So it was like, I would have been shocked. Like, they're happy that Barbie's back and Lita's back and Michelle, but they were like, I would have been so shocked at Mickie and Summer. Yes. And I was like, really? I'm like, okay, that's cool. And like, it seemed like everyone was really nice. But yeah, I wish they would have kept
I know
Mickie a secret, but I guess too, like, I mean, I take it as a compliment. I think they need ticket sales. And so, you know, to ever be in the same mix as like the Bellas and Lita and stuff.
Yeah, good
like
company.
Good company. Yeah.
It's so cool. I cannot wait to see this. I'm so excited. When I saw your name announced, I was like, bitch, what?
Oh my God. They ruined some of the boys, right? They said some of the boys that were...
I think that they did. I'm not 100% on that because I mostly saw the women's one. And then the main thing I saw with the men's is like Johnny Knoxville entering it, which is going to be great. But I love the Rumble. It truly is like my favorite pay-per-view. So I'm super excited to watch it. So let's get into why you left. Because I know it was a big deal when you left. I mean, I remember you kind of going through the motions of figuring out what you were going to do and what you wanted to do and what your own aspirations were outside of WWE. And you were dealing with some injuries. So what all was going on at that time?
Yeah. So it's interesting too, because like, I remember when my injuries, like we figured out, so I have a bone spur and a vertebrae in my neck on C4. I love when people like talk C and T and S. I'm like, yes, C4 is me, you're T5. Yes. Yeah. And then I have thoracic outlet syndrome. So I think you can live with bone spurs. Like old people have them from like car accidents and stuff like that. I'm very young to have one, but thoracic outlet syndrome is horrible. And so like your thoracic is like from your shoulder blade to here. And so a lot of major league pitchers have it. And it's called like TOS. And so basically like anytime I kind of flex my hand, that shoots like shooting pain up here. To lift weights, I kind of, even though I'm baby jacked, I do like 5 to 10 pounds because I will get migraines really easily. And it basically, it's just like, you know, like, it's like kind of being slouched. And when I first discovered it, I could never do this. And it's nerve damage basically. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to remove my first rib.
What? Like Marilyn Manson style? Remember that old rumor?
Then I can maybe help myself. Is your first rib
that was a rumor that went around, by the way, that like from me in Canada to you in North Carolina, that we all heard the same rumor.
Everyone, I bet he started it. So your first rib is technically your trap. So like people think ribs are like under your pecs and under your boobs, but really it's like up here. So in order to move my first rib, I mean, the scar, fans come up to me now if they've like really read up on it and they're like, oh, I had the rib removal. And their scars, like even in 2020, are like this big. And not even that it's a scar. You like can't work. You can't even start to get physical therapy for like 2 months. You have to like learn how to like sit out of bed. I mean, when you're missing a rib, it's like crazy. Yeah. And so the rib is like constantly putting pressure on my nerves and stuff like that. So I was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. I'm going to just like always have like physical therapy or chiropractor. So I love like chiropractor care and cupping and Graston is really good. So it was bad. Like when I first was learning how to work out with it, but I've kind of learned to work around it. Couldn't like squat for a while even too, just the pressure on the bar. So
what causes it? Is it from wrestling or is it like something?
So it's from, Yeah, so it's from like constant trauma. So like the bone spurs from constantly doing this, though we're supposed to tick our chins, you know, we only can do so much. And then and it's just like the nerve damage, like probably compressed nerves. I probably could have gotten more PT during it. I probably should have been treated once a week. I mean, I remember, I don't even know if I had a chiropractor really in Orlando. Like now I go religiously. So yeah, like, so it's weird. It wasn't like just one bump. Like when Nikki, you know, Bella, like, you know, she can like track it down to like where it was. I'm really happy for her that she got cleared. Oh my God. Like, yeah, her and I were texting too. And she's like, I didn't know if it'd be cleared. So for me, like, it wasn't like a, do I get cleared? Do I not situation? Like, I don't really know what, like, I'll be fine, but then I'll like need it, like, you know, get adjusted and stuff. So personally, like, I don't think I could ever be on the road 200 days a year again, bumping, but like, I definitely can like do some things, but I'm also not trying to like get in there right now and take suplex. Like I'd rather just like do it while we're out there and have the adrenaline going. But like I've rolled around with some people and stuff and like done some MMA stuff and I didn't feel like rusty. So when all that happened, I just kind of took a chill from WWE and like got treatment and was going to rehab probably like 3 to 4 times a week and was off the road. And then when I started to kind of feel better, I think I like, it was so long ago, I don't know, I can't remember if I asked to go back on the road, like to probably be, I wanted to be used in like a acting capacity or like a manager capacity. Or maybe they brought me on the road once a month. I can't remember what it was, but I definitely remember I had like a really great talk with Vince, in like, what was it in Texas when we were right by the border, Laredo or something?
No, Corpus Christi.
Oh yeah. Cause remember you pass the exit on accident and you're being in Mexico and you're like, oh my gosh,
that's Corpus Christi.
I'll be an hour late for TV now.
Yes.
So remember I had an amazing talk with Vince and I'm just very honest with him where I was like, you know, with the company back then, it's different than now. Like I was in Maximum Hot 100 or I had this company wanted to do a shoot with me, but legally they would have to go through WWE to book me. And so I was like, you know, if I'm just sitting at home collecting a paycheck, like that's nice to viewers that are probably listening at home. But also like for me, like I'm not advancing. I'm just getting older every year and I'm not doing anything creatively. And you and I are so like career driven.
Yeah.
So I just had really good talks with him and he was like, he loved me like as a voice and as a manager. And he was always like, yeah, let's find a space with you. But I totally understood that like, I'm also not Randy Orton, you know? So like I know, you know, it's out of sight, out of mind. And when you're at home, you know, you're very much out of sight. So, I was proud of myself for speaking up a lot towards the end, but I also think now like I'm just a very different human and I've gone through so many things out since I've left and learned how to navigate business more, where eventually they let me go, which is great because then you have a different set of royalties than if you quit. Technically I was fired, but it was with great communication, you know, and it was always knowing that like, I personally think I probably would have never left if I wasn't injured. Like, and you know,
how you loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know how that song and dance goes. And so I definitely think, you know, like the universe gave me the injury to kind of set me free and like make me go do that because there were so many times maybe where like I should have left before and I just didn't and it's also comfortable and it's nice to have consistent money now after the pandemic. You realize like how amazing that is. But I'll tell you what, no one should ever wrestle not in front of a crowd. That looked horrible.
Oh my God. I felt so bad for everyone having to do that. Like I had left, you know, the pandemic had been going on for a couple months before I had left. So I had been down, but I had got COVID. So I was off the road for a while. And then when I was back, and then it was pretty quickly after that we decided to part ways. And it was so weird being there in the Thunderdome or being at the Performance Center and it's so empty. And like, I remember it was like AJ Styles and Bryan Danielson, they were doing, 2 out of 3 falls match.
I mean, that alone is a match.
Yes.
Like insane.
Oh no, they were doing a best of 3 or a best of 5. It was something crazy that was like, oh my God, they were tearing it down. And it was just like, you can hear like, you know, the camera crew talking to each other, and you can hear like the commentators like breathing. Like it was just
it
so
just goes
weird
against like anything we ever were taught about psychology and like listening to the crowd, and like you do feed off of it. And so like when people always ask me what I miss the most from WWE, or if I miss it, I'm like, oh, I miss the crowd. And like so many of my friends are in bands or in, you know, performers, and they're like, you don't get that feeling, like hearing those people and like seeing them, like it makes Laredo, Texas worth it. Texas is going to come after me after this.
Like, do not mess with
actually Corporate Christie was hot for, what were the two guys with El Dorito and the two
with they were
they were over in Corpus Christi. They were over.
Chiquita baby.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
I love
so funny.
Torito and I
you guys
had a relationship. His wife does not know this.
I think I still have pictures on my phone of you two by that mirror going into Gorilla, of like you two doing like the chicken.
Oh my gosh. Like it was so funny.
Los Matadores. I got their name. Got it.
Oh yeah. We had such a massive language barrier, but yet we just found a way to talk.
Hey,
and he was so sweet. I actually found him when he was El Mascarita, right? Wasn't his like indie name? Yeah. And I have a picture of me, him, and Naylor. I sent it to Naylor the other day. And I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so like hearing the fans, like it makes, you know, the grind and like not being near your family. And like, I very much think, I'll have to ask my therapist if this is me blaming, but like that I'm like single and like don't have a baby and like don't have a family, because like it is so much when you're on the road for 6 years and you devote your life. And I think it takes a very special kind of.
That's why you marry a wrestler. That's what you do. Yeah. You find a wrestler and you bunk up and you call it a life.
For sure. And I totally get why like people did that. And like, you know, when they were dating, and like, it was hard in my relationship at the time too, like your long distance. And I think a lot of times, like the woman at home cooking and cleaning, when he comes home, the kids are fed and the bills are paid and the laundry's done. But for like a woman to come home and the man's doing that, you know, it's maybe like, where are my needs? What are they being met? I'm exhausted on my day off. I got to get my hair done and my nails and scrub my tan off. And, you know, so it's like, it's a dynamic, and I loved it, but I also loved, navigating my life afterwards. So that was interesting.
Okay. Let's get into that stuff, because you have been crushing it. People, I don't want to say like, it's a weird thing when you leave WWE, and it's like, it's really like, who am I? What am I doing? What am I trying to accomplish? Like people can really flounder in it, and it can be really hard. And, you know,
and a lot of people turn to like, you know, like get depressed or turn to substances and stuff.
Absolutely. It throws you for such a loop. So it's really cool from the outside to see everything that you've done. Like you have accomplished so much in your time of leaving, from like, from you going into like modeling to you getting to, you know, do New York Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, Miami Fashion Week. Like, did you ever imagine that those were the things that you were going to be able to go on and do on the other side of WWE?
No, because like all I ever thought about was WWE. So like that was the top. And I remember even getting Marine with Miz, and still Miz and Marie's like nicest people ever, like still talk here and there. Yeah. And I remember getting the movie and thinking, while I was still on Total Divas, and I was doing like my backstage or my interview at Total Divas, and I remember thinking, dang, I should have dreamt bigger, because I just dreamt to be a WWE diva, and like that was it. So then like so that taught me like you need to set new goals every time you reach them. But when I left, like it was hard. You go through like an identity crisis. Like I literally respond to Summer way more than Danielle. I didn't know who she was. I had to figure it out. And it was weird because like the outside world sees, not even Total Divas, sees Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown as reality TV. And like in my head, I don't, because I think like Total Divas and like Keeping Up with the Kardashians is reality. But I was very much, and if you look at my Instagram, I look like an influencer. I look like I should be making 100,000, 30,000. Like let's start anything off my Instagram for like paid posts and stuff like that. And like Barbie has been able to break into that, but like took years for her for that. And I remember managers would just look at me and they go, oh yeah, oh my gosh, it's great, I'm going to get you so much money. And then they would pitch me to stuff and they're like, oh no, we don't do reality TV, or we don't do this. And I remember for like a long time,
it's stiff out there, man.
It's really weird. And I remember talking to Jay Williams from ESPN, and we were talking about, because I know him through like some people, and I was saying like at the ESPYs, when I go to the ESPYs, which I loved going to that because I feel like there's not a lot of female representation. I said it was really weird because like I'm a female athlete, but I don't look like one. And then I was on reality TV, so I'm not really one. But then I wasn't on reality TV because I wasn't on like a big Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I was only in 2 years of Divas, and it wasn't under my real name. So then it's like, well, so then you look like a model, but then I actually don't, because I'm not a size 0 and I have muscles, but then I'm not a bodybuilder because I like don't lift a bunch of weights like so-and-so. So I always felt like I didn't know where I belonged. And I know that like sounds really weird to like someone that has a desk job and like, oh, she's bitching about this, poor me. But it is
such an identity crisis. And honestly, like weird. People pigeonhole you so much,
or they like want to label you.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously I get it. I'm in the same world as you, but it's like, it is way different than I think people have an idea from like an outside perspective of like how you fit into different boxes.
Sure. And it's like an interesting niche too, because then I would like tell my agents, I'm like, well, I don't want to be a fashion blogger. Like these girls shoot and do all this. And like, that's not my goals. But then I didn't really know what my goals were. And I think I was doing appearances, thank goodness, that was able to like pay my mortgage. And like, you always hear everyone buys a house and then they get fired. Like it didn't have like gender.
That happens to everybody. Ruby. Yeah, it happens.
Oh my gosh, literally everyone. Don't buy a house if you're in WWE. Honestly. And so I remember I was like doing these appearances and I was fine. I remember one time walking. Oh my God, I walked like 40 blocks in New York on the phone with my mom. Like I walked literally from like Soho to like Upper West. And I was crying to my mom. And I was just telling her, I was like, I don't want to be 70 years old, Summer Rae, signing things. And like, that's all I know him for. And I was like, but I'll never find the rush of the crowd again. Like I'll never, like professional athletes always go through that. Oh, by the way, too, professional athlete, but like you're not really a professional athlete because you're WWE. Like that's a whole nother thing too, you know? So like, oh, you're depressed. Well, you're not in the NBA. So like, what do you mean? Like it's fake, right? The whole thing. So I remember crying to my mom and I was just like, I just don't know what to do. And she goes, well, first of all, this is your in between. Like this is your crutch. How great that you can have this. I was like, no, I'm thankful. And she goes, this isn't permanent. Like this is what you're doing right now. And she goes, but I also think you're looking at it wrong. You're trying to replace that feeling. You're trying to replace the crowd and the rush of this and that, when really you're probably 1% of the world that got to fulfill their top tier dream. And it probably not even 1%, right? Like, probably like
it's low.
0.05. And I remember talking this to my friend that's a big country singer, and he was a little depressed during COVID and stuff. I was like, how cool that like, we completed that. We take it, we remember it, put it in a box, and that's your memory. Yeah. Now you're going to go find something else. Being a mother may not have the rush and scream of the crowd, but you may get a different feeling.
It rocks your world. You want your adrenaline glands. Yeah. I mean, listen, this kid gives me a run for my money.
Your kids like first soccer game or first art project or whatever, like you're chasing a feeling to replace it when you should just have gotten it, close the chapter, and now you go find new experiences. Maybe you find love, maybe you find Paris Fashion Week, you throw up in the back. Like, so it was so interesting. Like that was like my turning point to be like, oh, like I don't need to replace that. Like I need to, and I think everyone chases, I mean, that's why middle-aged men buy Lamborghinis, right? Yeah. Like they're chasing their young time. So that was really nice. And then COVID hit, and it's like, wow. So you go home and you're alone with your thoughts, which I'm usually listening to podcasts because I can't be alone. And that really, I mean, it was a horrible time, but that really made me be like, okay, you're existing, like you're maintaining, but you're not getting anywhere. Thank goodness you can pay your bills from, appearances, but what do you really want to do? And I didn't really know, but I was like, I don't have representation. I'm 5'10". I know I have model capabilities and I love shooting. I want to get signed. And that took so long. No one's signing in the middle of a pandemic. And right. I think about 6 months in, I had a Zoom with my agency in Chicago and they said, we don't want anyone to take you. We'll take you on, but you ain't going to book nothing for like a year because it's the pandemic, but we'd love to have you. We love to shop you around. So I actually got signed during the pandemic, which is one of my most successful moments was sitting in the pandemic because we just have this computer where you can just really email and Zoom. And like, I almost started like 3 businesses. And I remember my dad one time was like, oh, it's so lucky. Like, you're so lucky that you know how to start a business. And I went, I don't. I went on YouTube and I said, how to start a business from China, how to find an ethical plant in China, what paperwork to file, what TIN ID tax number. Like, I don't, but I just don't feel bad for anyone nowadays because we have the freaking internet.
Yeah, we have
and
information.
You can literally Google how to start a business with $500 and it'll tell you where to go to raise funds for people that want to early invest. Like, it's very interesting even too, like having been a wrestler, I'm like, yeah, like I made great money, but I also put it all in a down payment of a home. Yeah. Like liquidity, like if I had to count my liquidity, like it's not a lot. So we're all working, the same or whatever. So
hustling. Yeah.
Yeah. Hustling. So it was interesting. So I think like once we started to kind of get out of the pandemic was when I started being like, okay, now I want to do swim week and now I want to do this and got into crypto because
tell me about that. Holy shit. I was literally this morning Googling. I'm like, okay, what is happening with an NTF? Do I need an NTF? What's going on with cryptos? Like, I don't have a clue, but you seem like
So I just feel like I never said no to anything. Do you know like Lisa Rinna with the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Oh yeah. And she would always be like, depends, diapers.
Oh, NTF. I just got made fun of, not NFT.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. so like, and even NFTs, it's so like, most people don't know what they're talking about. Let's just be honest. But I had a friend that reached out to me last February, was like, hey, do you know what Bitcoin was? And I was like, no. And so for anyone sitting at home that has no idea what it is, I've done all of this in 1 year. And so she said, there's a startup where you can get paid in crypto. So for example, WWE could say, hey guys, we want to offer you Hedge. Hedge is a way to take a percentage of your ACH wire transfer every week when you get paid. You can take 5%, you can take $5, whatever it is, and you can transfer it into the 3 most stable, secure cryptos that there are right now, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin. Some people at home are saying why Litecoin is because it's our investor or like Hedge investor is that. And then it also takes whatever you do every week, it also puts it into your wallet. So nowadays, if you're buying tons of Bitcoin a week, your banks flag it and your banks can like freeze your accounts. So you want to talk about illegal. That's it. So if you want Uber, taxis never liked Ubers. The banks don't like crypto. Yeah. Hotels don't like Airbnb, it's very much that, when things are new, when people don't like it is when you should pay attention because it's ruffling some feathers for a reason. So I said, sure, with this company Hedge, I said, I don't know anything about it, but blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, why don't I teach you? Would you want to have a 1-hour Zoom with me? And I'm like, why is this man being so nice to me? And I'm like, okay. And so he really broke it down for me. I was so bored. Second week, he goes, you want to learn again? I said, if he's giving a free education, it's better than reading. I said, sure. Second week, so bored. Third week, Back to the Future, the movie. So he's telling me, he's like, well, you mine Bitcoin. This is how you mine it. It looks like a fax machine, Renee. It's the biggest, chunkiest, weirdest. A mining machine is weird. It's like this big. He goes, if you plug it in at WeWork, it would make so much noise. It takes so much electricity. Well, taboo. Taboo. They're starting to change that. But in theory, that it can make your whole building flicker. And it's going to try to find a Bitcoin drops out of the sky, you know, for all purposes, everyone calm down. But like every couple seconds, blah, blah, blah. And it scrambles all these numbers and it's going to mine it. And the first person to win wins that Bitcoin that's $64,000 or whatever it is. And blah, blah, blah. And I went, wait, it's 2021 and the thing looks like a fax machine from Back to the Future and takes the electricity of a building. And I'm thinking, that's fascinating. And so that's like a Zach Morris cell phone. And like, look where we are now. Like, do people know about? And that's when it like switched for me. And I'm like, wait, we're on this early. Like, this is like really, really early. And then I watched a documentary that I really highly recommend for anyone. It's 45 minutes on Amazon and it's called Banking on Bitcoin. And it's this lady in South Africa. And I love when women talk about crypto because I also
love a South African accent. Give me that.
Oh my God. She's great. She walks around barefoot. She's a millionaire, multimillionaire now. She like used her earnings on Bitcoin to buy more chickens, swear to you. Oh. And she's just like, great. I'm like, oh, in America, someone would have spent it on a Ferrari. Very telling. And so I watched this 45-minute documentary and they explained it so much. And they explained just blockchain. Blockchain is in the cloud, right? For all learning purposes. Blockchain is just something in the cloud. And you're able to have, you cannot, how can I explain this? Blockchain, you cannot lie on it. You can't alter it. If politics were put on the blockchain, every single person that gave to Biden or Trump, you could see each donation and where it went. So it's a way to hold everyone accountable. Mm-hmm. So they logged a energy plant in a very, very impoverished little town in South Africa, their water onto this meter, and they put it on a blockchain. So then anyone that donated $5, it went straight to pay the meter of the electricity within seconds. So you know how there's all this talk about the Red Cross, if your blood really goes there and everything. Yeah. So if every, especially nonprofit, put their organization on a blockchain, you could see how much they take out to pay their employees, how much this and that. And it was fascinating to me. I'm like, oh, everyone talks about like, oh, Bitcoin, Russia, they're all listening to you, but no one's talking about the good that it could really change of our lives. So when I watched this Banking on Bitcoin thing, I was like, the blockchain could like help so many people and stop corruption. And that's so interesting. So it was something I kind of learned. And then after 5 weeks of him teaching me, he was like, would you want to come on as marketing director? And I was like, I knew it. I knew there was a reason you were teaching me, but I was like, sure, why not? I've never done anything like that. So they gave me like an executive position and
crazy.
We just went into beta for Hedge. So if anyone wants to get paid in crypto, it's gethedge.io. But yeah, so I've kind of just been in this world. The Bitcoin conference is really fun. It's in Miami in April. Diplo performed. It was actually like kind of lit. I was very shocked. He's like big into crypto too. So yeah, I just feel like I started doing horse racing too, commentating for horse racing.
Yeah, you got the hats. You're ready to go.
Lisa Ann, the porn star, she's the one who gave me the pass off of the horse racing. She had a conflict of interest. We had met each other at Sirius Radio years ago. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I know this girl, like you should ask her. So I knew nothing about crypto or horse racing at the beginning of last year. And I think last February, I was so close to selling my home. And I was like, man, I maybe have like $7,000 like liquid in the bank. I may have to sell my home. And then I started in like Bitcoin, which I get 1%. So it hasn't like profited just yet. But then I got the horse racing. Then I started booking for, runway. And then I started getting online deals. And last year was like my most successful year to date. So,
oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah. Everything can change around in 1 year,
It's so crazy how I feel like that's kind of like the Rock story with like the whole $7 in his pocket situation. But I really feel, and I mean, not that that's like a rock bottom situation, but when you feel like you're like, what am I doing? Where am I landing? What is like my solid footing right now? It can be a really scary thing. Like I've definitely had moments like that when I like wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, what am I doing? What am I like? I need to be doing X, Y, and Z or whatever. And it can be so overwhelming sometimes. But I feel like if you're working on stuff, anything, whatever it is, the things that you're passionate about, the things that are like landing in your lap. And like you said, saying yes to things. I'm such a big proponent for saying yes to opportunities and yes to learning new things and like, yes to putting yourself, you know, in situations where stuff like that can pay off. It's so cool the way the universe kind of has your back like that.
For sure. And like, I think a lot of times with entrepreneurship as well, like, you know, they said how many businesses have come out of the pandemic and everyone quit their business and no one can wait tables anymore because everyone's fed up, you know? So I think there was like this awakening during the pandemic. And I think also too, like you can be an entrepreneur and you can manifest things, but you have to be smart. So if you have something that like you can find that consistently pay your bills or like half of it, then you can go to passion projects. So like since last September, so it's been a year and a couple months, I started developing 2 apps with my business partner.
Oh my gosh.
And so one of them is going to be a social media app. So when we launch like mid-year, I'll have to come back on and explain that because it'll be like, I think it's a way that people can make profit at home teaching their craft, which is really cool, whatever you do. And this whole home learning thing, Zooming is just becoming the norm. Your kid is going to know, you know, how to learn things at home. So it's kind of something that we've just piggybacked on that. But even that, like making apps are so expensive. We have investors over like $300,000. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all this money. But I only do that knowing that I also have, you know, the horse racing was making me a little something consistent. So I think you have to be smart and you have to maybe have something that pays your bills, something that keeps you healthy, and then something that like feeds you creatively.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's really true because I think for, you know, it's like your left hand's got to be doing something for your right hand to be able to do its thing, to be sort of ambidextrous in that situation. But like, because I mean, shit, being financially stressed about anything up a bunch of shit. It's really hard to stay creative and it's really hard to like stay motivated when you're like, oh my God, I can't even pay my bills right now. I need to go grocery shopping. I need to buy stuff for my kids. Like that can throw you for such a loop and kind of wipe everything else off the table. So having something like that going and then working on the side stuff to try to get those things to come together, I think is the way you kind of have to do it. But
for sure. And the best money I've ever spent is going to therapy. And that's also something I started doing at the end of last year. And I'm not paid by this brand. I just like, it's changed my life. So I want to like tell your followers about it.
Please.
So this app is called BetterHelp.
Yes. We love BetterHelp around here.
Oh, so they sponsor like podcasts. They have a great marketing team.
Yeah.
So it was brought up to me through a friend and my anxiety was just like really, really bad again in like November and like crazy anxiety. And gosh, I don't even feel like it was that bad during the pandemic. I was annoyed being at home and not working out during the pandemic. That's my main thing. But I was like, learned about it, what it is. It's great for my lifestyle because I'm not in a certain place, but you get 1 hour video chat every week. And then you get access to your therapist on text, DM, 24/7. They have up to 24 hours to message you, but my lady's really good. Like if I write her in the middle of the night, sometimes I just write her in the middle of the night because I'm like, oh, I had a thought. Like, I don't care. Like one, my thoughts now, the things I'm working on now are like that, like I put other people's happiness before my own self-care. So like, I don't really think about my self-care as much as I do other people's happiness or whatever. So I was like telling her I had a thought and then she'll write me back at like 10 a.m. like chill. But you can write at 1 a.m, or if you're suicidal or whatever it is, I'm sure that's like a great function. The thing that I always hated about therapy is that it's so expensive. It would be like $150 to $200. And then you go like 7 times to tell them your life story. And then you like, don't like them.
Right.
So the thing that I like about, I swear to you, this is not an ad, but I just have loved is like, so it's $360, I think, a month, which ends up being like $80 a week, which I think they do. If you make a certain income, you can get like a discount on that, or if you have a discount code or something.
Yeah.
But to me, like $80 a week to have a 1 hour talk, whether I'm in Dubai or wherever, is amazing. And then messaging them. And I've just loved it. Like I wanted worksheets and stuff. And like, so I had worksheets about like, what is my talk that I tell myself, and like negative self-talk. And I think I'm super positive to my friends, and I think I can do it. And I always post positive stuff because it reminds me of that. But sometimes I just think that I'm not enough. And I think like a lot of people also think that. So she's given me ways to like combat negative self-talk and be like, well, what made you think that way? Is that true or false? Well, most of the time it's false. I've made it up in my head. Okay, well, what are the facts? Well, the facts are ABC. Okay, so you're wrong. I'm like, yeah. So it's interesting, like, you know, and it takes time. I'm going to have to like do that every time I have a thought like that. But I've loved it. Like I've learned so much about myself through therapy.
I've never heard someone like be doing therapy and say, don't need it. It's not for me. I feel like anyone that starts doing it talks about how life-changing it is. I don't do therapy, but I could probably use a ton of it. Well, I really should. I should do it.
Well, the interesting thing is like my friend right now, she like paused her membership, and she was like, I just don't think I need it right now. And I was like, yeah. And like, so then I was like, okay. And then like for the last 2-3 weeks, I've been telling her, I'm like, my anxiety is amazing. I'm so excited about the Rumble, like all this stuff, where I could have paused it. But instead I was like, let me just talk about it. And I actually feel like I have gotten the most out of my less anxious, happy weeks than when I was like, oh my God, like on the verge of like crying from anxiety. I've gotten so much out of it when I was like, oh, I don't need it, because then my guard's down, then I'm less defensive. I'm not anxious. And I'm like, sure, let's talk about my mom or my dad, or, well, how was their marriage? Like, you know, or it's stuff I've never even thought of. The crazy thing is I was listening to this. I love podcasts. I've been really thinking about starting my own podcast. Obviously I can talk to a brick wall. So we'll have to talk about that. But I was listening to this podcast, and they were saying that this girl, she's 39 and never knew that she was like abused as a child, like sexually abused as a child. And through therapy, her therapist was like, oh, well, that's weird that you can't spend the night at a guy's house like every night, and that you have sleepless nights. Like, have you ever thought about that? And there's something called like a rapid eye movement, where it's like PTSD trauma for military men usually. And it's something, and she was like, I want to do that. And her therapist was like, are you sure? Like it can be a little traumatic. And because the therapist like knew what she was going to discover. And anyways, she ended up doing it. And it was, you know who it was? It was the girl from 90210.
Tiffany Amber,
the blonde girl. And she's been very public about it. Like you'll listen, she's been on lots of podcasts, and she's talked about discovering at age 39 something her brain had completely shut out. And when your brain is protecting you, and it stops and it covers your memories and it pushes it out. And that made me be like, wait, what? Like, that's crazy. And I personally think, if I don't remember now, I'm really crushing it. And so like, why dig it up?
Leave it. Leave that shit locked up.
But if anyone has issues where like they just can't place it and stuff, there's so many things that like our brain's interested in. So I kind of told my therapist at the first session, I was like, you know what? I work out almost every day. I work my body out. I work on my businesses, but I don't work my brain out. And I just feel like if I started lightly walking on my brain, lightly jogging, and then we went into a run, like imagine what I could uncover. Like imagine I'm 38, I'm single, I'm not married. Is there a reason for that? I don't know. Let's jump into therapy.